guys, welcome back to Panic Button Podcast, where we talk about mental health, how we get through it, why we get through it, down to the nitty gritty, all of the stuff you guys already know. Doing a mental health check-in for myself this week. I have a cold, so it's kind of like, motherfucker. You know, I hadn't had a cold for like a couple months, and I have a toddler, as you guys know, so usually like we're always sick here. But I haven't been sick for a while, and then it finally caught up to me, and I'm like, oh, bitch. So that's fun. You know, and what that's made me realize, kind of jumping back to my mental health check-in, and I don't know if you guys can relate with this, but if you can, just drop a comment to make me feel like I'm not alone. But the older that I've gotten, and when I get sick, that like sparks my anxiety even more. And I don't know if I think it's because I'm getting older and I'm just gonna like die from everything. As morbid as that sounds, but it's true. Like, you know, I don't know if it's just like something that's like, you know, you're just getting older, so like every cold could be like the last cold. I don't know, it's fucked up, but anxiety does some pretty crazy things to your mind. I mean, we already know this, we talk about it all the time. But yeah, definitely do not like being sick. Sick Jess is not nice Jess. I definitely play like, oh, I'm a baby, like I don't want to be sick. My partner can attest to that. I am the worst patient ever. But yeah, otherwise, you know, we're hanging in there. We're doing good still. Haven't had a panic attack in probably over a month, but I probably just, now that I put that thought into the universe, they're gonna be like, wait on a second, it's been over a month. We gotta stir the pot a little bit. But you know, it's been good, and I can't complain. You know, I'm not thinking about anxiety every day anymore, and it's a good thing. So just keep the faith if you're going through some hard times, because for a couple months you guys have seen me go through some hard times, and you know, it's definitely coming up, and it's looking up, and it's going in the right direction. And it will for you too. It's inevitable. Like I've told you guys, bad days are inevitable, but good days are just as inevitable. So I'm happy I'm finally getting some of those good days. But without further ado, I do have a special guest on here. His name is Kevin Crispin. He's actually from Monticello, Illinois. He's a writer, storyteller, podcaster. He's also a mental health advocate, and he writes short bios as well. He is the host of the podcast Sad Times. He has struggled his whole life with OCD and anxiety, with a little depression spliced in. You know, he believes in kindness, humor. He's fucking funny, guys. You guys are gonna like him. Really good sense of humor and great personality. And I'll drop a link in here, but you can learn more about his podcast at www.sadtimespodcast.com. And Kevin, are you here with us?
I sure as shit am.
Hey, Kevin, how's it going, man?
It's going well, Jess. How are you?
Doing all right. Doing all right. You know, I got my little rant out about how I'm a little bitch when I get sick, but I mean, I think we all have our tendencies.
I love the mental health check-in, by the way, and I'm not going to say that I'm going to steal it from you, but I'm probably going to steal that from you.
You know, right? It's kind of like making the people like up to date on my bullshit, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't want to let people be like, how is she doing right now? Is she okay? Where are we at with things? You know, we got to keep it spicy here.
Until like, and then you'll be like, you know what? This October, I'm not going to give any update. People are going to be like, what the fuck is wrong with Jess?
Right?
It'll be like sweeps week on television.
Right? They're gonna be like, what happened to her? She hasn't done a mental health check-in. No, and it's funny because like I used to start, when I started this podcast, the first couple episodes are just of me talking before I had guests on. So I think I'm gonna want to like throw a spoiler in the upcoming weeks of just me again to see if people are paying attention. Because like you could totally tell when it's just me or if I have a guest, because like the ones with just me are like 15-20 minute like rants, and the guests are like, you know, at least 45 minutes to an hour. So we'll see if people are really paying attention to me at that point.
You'll be like, Jess, I really loved your guest, Jess.
Right? I'm like, thanks, asshole. Oh shit. See, I told you guys Kevin was funny. He's good people. Really happy to connect with him, and I'm really happy to have you on here, Kevin. Appreciate you taking the time. So just tell us a little bit more about you. And, you know, you have a podcast of your own. So before jumping into why you started that, tell us a little bit about your mental health journey.
For sure, Jess. And, you know, thank you so much for having me on. As I said before, I met you through good old Instagram, and learned about the work that you're doing. And so I'm really honored to be here. So thank you. My mental health journey, it's not been great. I have always had anxiety, and I believe, my first panic attack when I was about 5. And I was at my grandparents' house, and I was afraid I was going to run away. I didn't want to run away. I had no plans to run away, but I was certain I was going to do it. And I felt the walls closing in around me and all this stuff. And then I didn't know how I was going to explain to my grandma, "Oh, I'm afraid I'm going to run away," because she would have said something loving like, "Well, we're not going to let you run away. You're." And I wanted. So then I'm having this conversation in my head, when I should be, you know, learning to read or something. And uh, I just felt ashamed that I was so confused. I was like, I don't want to run away. But that to me at the time was like worst case scenario. I'm running from my family. And I was so afraid I was going to do it. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Pardon me. And as I got older, anxiety started to show itself more and more. And my panic attacks got to be really overwhelming. And in high school, I would have panic attacks that were just, they would wear me out for like 2 days. It was like I did a triathlon of panic attacks, and then I would just be worn the fuck out. And I worried about the strangest things. And when I was a kid, I thought I was going to stick my head in a tornado siren, or I thought I was going to die in the electric chair, or I thought I was going to be cooked in an oven. I mean, just really weird shit. And I thought, well, surely nobody else is worried about these things. And I thought, surely there's something very wrong with me. And then at some point, I would just sit and I would say things to myself like, you can, you know, bring it on, or you can do it. And I'd freak out about stuff. But at some point, I found out, oh, other people go through this thing. Maybe they don't worry about sticking their head in a tornado siren. I sure fucking hope not. But I was like, oh, I'm not alone. And that was the biggest relief ever. And as I've said before, it's not because other people were suffering, it's because I wasn't alone.
Sure.
Well, I then went to college. And right before college, I got put on some Paxil, very little Paxil. Went to a psychiatrist when I was in college, and also had a therapist there. But I went to the psychiatrist, and I went to talk to him, and he wasn't even. It was like he was turned away from me, like he wasn't even looking at me, and he was just like writing shit down. He's like, "What are you worrying about?" I said, "Okay, well, this is where I do it." And so I just told him the weird shit I worried about, and there was a pause, and he goes, "Huh, that's weird." And I was like, "What the fuck do you mean that's weird?" I mean, this is a guy who hears this shit all day, every day, right? He
Yeah,
ended
you're
up,
like, oh shit, I'll see myself out.
I'll see myself out. Do you have a plastic bag I could wrap around? You know. So he ended up way over prescribing me medication. He put me on an antipsychotic as well, which I did not need to be on. And I was on a high dose of Zoloft and an antipsychotic, and it turned me into a zombie. And I did the thing that you're not supposed to do. And I would take it, then I would not take it, then I would take it, then I would not take it. So I was all over the place emotionally. And then I traveled for a number of years as an actor. And during that time, I didn't have a lot of chance to go to therapy because I didn't have health insurance. And when I did, it was through these amazing pay scale places. And I finally was able to get a regular psychiatrist, and we got me on some new medication. This is much later. And now I'm on enough Prozac to choke a horse. And
It's not funny, but it is.
I mean, it's a lot of fucking Prozac, man. And let me tell you something.
Oh,
Swallow a Prozac, and it gets caught. And I hope this does never happen to you with any medication you take, Jess. But when that shit gets caught in your throat, oh God, it's horrible. So, and I've been going to therapy basically on and off for 33 years. And I'm on medication. I work out a lot, but I still every day struggle with this shit. And in 2017, I did a one-man show about all the weird shit I've been worried about. And the goal was for people to watch it and for me to basically say, here's my weird shit. I'm sure that you have weird shit. I'm not asking you to tell me that, but hopefully you'll feel a little bit more a little less alone, and then you'll be comfortable going off and telling maybe some of your weird shit to somebody, and then the stigma can just be a little bit chipped away.
Yeah, and then we're gonna have everybody just sharing their weird shit and be like, "Thanks, Kevin."
Yeah.
That fucking guy, you know?
They're like, oh my God.
On your mind for like days. You're like, what does that look like?
With 328 years of therapy and the medication,
Damn,
I've
Kevin, you look great for 328, man.
hey, feeling great. The great I have tools to help identify what's going on, and tools to not just my problem, and I think this is true for a lot of people, but I can safely say for myself, I get a feeling or I get a thought and I want to stop it. I want to stop it immediately. I want it over. And all that does is invite the thought to stay.
Yep. 100%.
And right. And so I have tools and years of dealing with it that I understand. Sometimes it's still not enough, but most of the time I have tools now that can help it where it does not become an all consuming, overwhelming thing. It still does sometimes. And the other thing that I've had to learn is I got to God, where are you going with all that Prozac? That's going to choke a horse.
Oh shit! I'm gonna keep that one in my back pocket because that's funny.
All right.
I've never heard somebody say it like that, but you know, it's all
Yeah.
right. I get it. I dig it. So basically, like after you've kind of gotten a handle on things, you've been battling, like you said, since you were 5. Did this lead you to your podcast of sad times then, or what's that story look like?
So kind of it stems from when I did that show. So I went through a particularly a dark time in 2015, and I was coming out of that, and I thought to myself, it'd be funny if I did a show about all the shit I've been afraid of. And then I fell in love, and that kind of got put on the back burner, and then that ended, and I needed something, anything at all, to put my mind somewhere else. And so I wrote the show and did the show, and it was a wonderful, amazing experience. Wonderful. And a couple years later, a friend of mine said, hey, I'm starting a Twitch thing, and I want you to do the show on Twitch. I said, well, I don't really want to do my show again. And then I got drunk, and I came up with the idea for Sad Times, which is I would like to have a guest on every week who talks about difficult times in their life. And the goal is not to solve it or any of that or diagnose it or judge it. It's just to allow the story to be told so that people can hear those stories. So it started as a Twitch show, and then it turned it into a podcast. And we're at 83, 84 episodes as of this recording. And that's kind of where the podcast came from. It all comes from that one man show.
Yeah. Damn. See, so going up there talking about your weird shit, kind of paid off.
It it did something. I before we did the first what's called a tech rehearsal of it, where you do the lights and the sound and everything. It was about a 55-minute show. I was not about to make anybody sit through more than 1 hour of my bullshit. And plus, man, that's a lot to memorize. And right before we started, I kind of had my head down and I said very quietly out loud to myself, are you really going to tell all these people this? Because I had told it to people who had listened to some readings I did to get some feedback on the script. And of course, to my director who directed me. And then I was like, I guess I am. And then I just fucking did it. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of stuff I just told them. Okay.
But did you feel better after you had done it?
Yes. It was one of the best experiences of my life. And I partnered with a local mental health organization in Chicago and gave the proceeds to them because they were a sliding scale place, like I talked about, because I relied on those places when I did not have insurance. And people should not have to make a choice between their mental health and not. So these places are godsends for so many people. And if you're in the Chicagoland area, it's called Cathedral Counseling. It's an amazing place. Anyhow, I was doing the show one night, and I was looking, it was in a black box theater, and which is a small theater, and there was a woman and somebody else in the front row, and I was like, I don't know who those people are. And then I came back out, and the woman was standing there with this person, and the person next to her was crying, and she said, "This is my daughter, and I don't know how." She said she's tried to explain to me over and over again what's going on in her head. She can't do it. And then she pointed at the stage after you walked off and said, "That's it. That's what's going on." And I looked to the person, and that person, she didn't say anything. She was just crying. She just nodded her head. And that was it. That was the best thing. That was the best.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't imagine. That's, you and I have talked a little bit before, like, that's really all it's about, at that point, just connecting with one person and helping something that you say resonates with them and helps them know they're not alone.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
That's huge. Definitely very rewarding. Get a lot of, what is the word? Just a lot of joy hearing people's stories and how they've overcome them, and when they're comfortable sharing their stories with me, such as yourself, that's an honor alone. So yeah, it's huge giving people the platform to do that. I mean, you obviously had a whole stage to do that, so nobody gives me a fucking stage, but
Well, you have the podcast stage, right?
yeah, this is true. I don't think that people would pay to listen to me talk for 53 minutes. It'd
Oh, they
probably be
might.
like, maybe 10.
No,
Depends if they're serving alcohol.
Oh, and I was serving alcohol.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not that delusional to think people are here to have fun and stay sober.
You're like, I already got to tell my weird shit to these people. Come on, let's get some happy juices flowing.
Exactly right. But it also I had like these little animated things in it that my good friend Ryan did, who's a really talented animator. And so I got these awesome images of little Kevin in an electric chair, and little Kevin like halfway into a tornado siren and shit.
So
Yeah.
I have to ask, like, do you remember, like, did you see something that like put that thought in your head with the tornado siren? Like, that's just so specific.
Well, I saw the tornado siren in my hometown here, and I would hear it go off. It goes off the first Tuesday of every month, right? It's loud as fuck, as well it should be. And I, for some reason, had thought, oh, it looks, what I thought was a tornado siren, I've just learned, I think was just a water spigot, because I'm an idiot. I saw it, and I thought, oh, that's so loud that comes out of there. What if I put my head in there, and then I'm going to lose my hearing? Oh, God. And it just went from there. And so I'd like keep a wide berth of the non-tornado siren. So that's where that came from.
Okay, I knew that there was something that had to spark that imagination somewhere, because that's like a real rare, like, my head might get caught in a tornado siren today. Because I don't think personally, I don't think I've ever seen a tornado siren.
And here's the funny thing, I don't think I have either, because I'm an idiot again. And I actually just did a video on Instagram of me sitting in front of, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, how dumb are you, Kevin? That looks like it's just going to drain some water from the water tower that's above your head.
Can't fix them all.
Nah, that's true.
You shared your weird shit, so it's okay.
That's right.
So I know that you have battled with OCD and anxiety, but I'm more curious what your OCD battle has looked like for you, especially, were you diagnosed at a younger age, or was this something that happened later on?
I was officially diagnosed with OCD, gosh, 13 years ago, maybe, somewhere in there.
Okay.
But it's something I've dealt with a lot, and it's the racing thoughts, it's the rumination, I have compulsions. I love the number 16. I count my steps. I do things with my hands and what not elements. Counts of 16.
So that's like not a joke. Like you actually do that?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Huh. Even I'm not trying to, if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. Are you on medication for OCD?
Actually the Prozac it helps treat OCD.
Oh, okay. So even like with that, you still are able to like notice like what you're doing that relates to OCD tendencies?
For sure.
Huh.
And I have to touch things a certain way, touch it first with my left hand, then my right hand.
And you
Just a
didn't
bunch of
notice these before?
I became obsessed with the number 16 when I was 14, as I recall. And I think I loved the number 16 because I was like, oh, God, that's when I'll be able to drive, you know? And so I became obsessed with that number. I don't know exactly when I started. It was right around then, I think, that I started doing things like this. But I also will look at words or groups of words and count the letters. And I'll want it very much to be 16. And a new thing that I've done, which I'm very excited about, is that I'll see groups of numbers and I'll add them up in my head very fast, or try to at least. I trained for a marathon last year, so I was running by houses all the fucking time. So I'm like looking at all these address, 3 or 4 numbers, and I'm adding them up. And when, for whatever reason, I've always been uneasy about the number 13, because they say it's bad luck or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
So anytime I see something that adds up to 13, I'm like looking around like a crazy person trying to find another set of numbers that I can add up. It'd be lovely if it was 16, but anything that's not 13, then I'll feel okay. OCD is a lot of OCD is magical thinking. And it's like you think in your brain, well, I'm thinking X, Y, or Z, and the world will react to it. Or I saw the number 13, well, that means something bad's going to happen to me. And now I'm going to have to do these compulsions to stop the feeling that I get when I'm worried about those things.
So it seems like, I guess, because I don't battle OCD and I don't have anybody in my life personally that I know that has either, but I do battle panic disorder, which and that sounds like kind of some similarities with like panic attack tendencies that like build up to that almost. So does
Exactly right.
your OCD sometimes cause panic attacks, if you don't mind me asking?
Yes, I do mind. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, bye, Kevin.
Bye. Thanks for the update. No, the anxiety causes the panic attacks, but it's the racing thoughts and it's obsessing over things. And when I say I was afraid, for example, of dying in the electric chair, it wasn't just a passing thing. It was like I thought about it all the time, and I would look around at my fellow sixth graders, and I'd look around at them, and they'd be like, "Ooh, the book fair's coming up," and I'm like, a jolt of electricity is going to go through my body. Of course, I didn't say that because I'm like, who the fuck? What would they say if I said that to them? They'd be like, what?
Right.
It was constant. It's all I thought about. When I was younger, I was afraid I was going to be kidnapped. There was a time where I was like crawling under windows so that people, the kidnapper, whoever that may be, wouldn't see me. And my babysitter goes, Kevin, what are you doing? I was like, nothing, just crawling, So I worry about things to a point where it becomes overwhelming, and then I have a panic attack.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess like for me, and maybe you can relate to this then. Like I mean, I for sure have like Googled like do I have OCD? Like I'm not going to lie to you because with anxiety, I feel like I ruminate on the thought of anxiety. And for you, it seems like it's like specific things. It's not just anxiety. Like it's like the number 16 or like, getting your tornado head thing. Like, so do you also have those thoughts that pertain to anxiety, or it's usually like other things that you just like obsess over?
Both. And
Oh, fuck,
just a little
man.
just a little inside baseball here. We just recorded you were on Sad Times. We just recorded that, and something that you said on there, I'm going to misquote you, but basically you said sometimes you'll be like, "Why am I not worrying about something?" Right? Am I remembering that correctly? Worry that you're not worrying.
Yeah, I
I
get
get that.
anxiety about not having anxiety.
Right, right. It's the quiet mind. It's like, well, something should be going on. And I heard a lot. I used to. I luckily not as bad, but I've had some pretty bad bouts with hypochondria.
Okay.
Um, and like bad. And and so that was a big thing for me for a very long time. Was worrying that, oh, I just had any number of things. So that was a real big focus.
So does
Pardon.
that just like stay?
I got to give myself grace for that because we're not all going to be perfect all the time.
Yeah, and like you just said, how I was on Sad Times and just speaking about it's hard for us to adapt to the idea that these disorders are not all that we are. You're not just someone with OCD, like it just happens to be something that you battle. It's not who you are.
Right.
And I think that
Exactly.
is like the hardest pill to swallow and convince ourselves of. And I talk about on previous episodes just giving ourselves grace and being present and understanding. And that really does go a long way.
It really does. And one thing I've also learned is it's like everything else, it's not going to happen overnight. So it's little smidgens of grace that you give yourself that goes a long way. You're not going to solve the fucking problem that day. But if you're just a little nicer to yourself, it makes everything else just a little bit easier.
Yeah, hearing your story a little bit with OCD, it sounds like there's a ton of correlations to that with anxiety and panic disorder. Yeah, that's just, it's crazy how all of these things really are like connected one way or the other. I mean, obviously, like you have a little bit more on the OCD side than with panic disorder. I just continue to think about how I'm gonna have a panic attack. So, but it's
Mhm.
still those like intrusive thoughts, like that repetitive. Where I remember one time for a week, like I would wake up and all I would think about the entire day is when my next panic attack would be, and I could
Well,
not move past that.
it's awful, and I had a therapist say to me when I was a kid, and maybe you've had somebody say something. He said, "All right, Kevin, I want you to not think of a pink elephant." And then I go, "Okay." And he goes, "What'd you think of?" I said, "A pink elephant." He goes, "Yeah, see?" And I said, "Right." And so I would imagine in the case that you're talking about, Jess, oh my God, the worst case scenario, I don't want to have another panic attack. I don't want to have another one. Oh God, when's it going to come? I know it's going to come. And then you just swirl it into this whole world. You create a world within 4 seconds that
Yep.
it started with a single thought, and then all of a sudden you think you're about to have 40 panic attacks. And it happens so fucking fast that it takes a long time to understand that's what's happening.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. Like you just totally hit it on the head where I would have those times for like a solid week where all I was thinking about was anxiety and would I ever feel okay again and just thinking about it. But now I've changed my mindset a little bit. That's helped me recently, and I'm sure that you can relate to this, where I know that if a panic attack happens, it happens. It's okay. It's part of who I am. It's not who I am. There's going to be some days that I have anxiety. There's going to be some days I don't have anxiety. Like it's almost telling yourself that we're not going to let this control us anymore because if it happens, it happens. We go with it. We have to. We have to continue to just roll with the punches.
Exactly right.
It's crazy, man. It is a whirlwind of how these different disorders are really correlated to one another. Like I thought I'm in full transparency. I thought I was fully alone with having those thoughts of every day thinking about the same thing no matter what I did.
Yeah. I'm um yeah, it's horrible. And it's and another thing, and we've kind of talked about it. We certainly talked about it a little bit ago when we were recording Sad Times. trying to explain this to somebody who maybe doesn't struggle with the same thing, and that person may be somebody who loves you very much and really wants to understand. Trying to put it into words is taking me a whole lifetime
So
to
fucking hard.
be able to write and to say. I call it 3 things. I call it the voice, the anxiety, a world, right? So the voice says something, you feel anxious, and then because you feel anxious, all of a sudden you've built this world up. I also call anxiety the cancer of belief because
Yeah,
just like cancer, it just goes and metastasizes before you're like, what the fuck just happened?
right.
And then it's so hard to get back from there, especially if you don't have the tools, or you don't have a support system around you.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. We talk about all the time how important it is to have that support system no matter what it looks like. But you're right. I mean, explaining it to people it's one, it's exhausting. Two, you usually don't want to talk about it to explain it. And three, like you just it's very hard for people that have never experienced it to understand. And that person's relationship with you, it doesn't matter. Like just because someone is your parent doesn't mean they're gonna get it because they've never dealt with it themselves. They could try and try and try, but being able to explain it is just like pulling teeth. Like, and then you have the people that the typical response, well, just calm down. It's fine. It's like, yeah, okay.
Oh, wait a minute. What was it? Calm down? I didn't know I could do that.
Right?
All right.
Thank
Well,
you, Captain fucking Obvious. I would have done that myself
let
20
me just
minutes ago,
continue my
pre
podcast.
panic attack.
Yeah. I mean, going back to the electric chair thing, I had like a full on panic attack on we were visiting Chicago, on the street of Chicago, and my dad had to take me back to the hotel. I'm 12-ish, probably. And he's like, "What is the problem?" You know? And so I was like, "Well, I better tell him." And I tell him, and he looks at me like, "What are you even what?"
He's like, where am I dropping this kid off?
Why he was hoping I'd be like, "Oh, I'm worried about grade at school, or I'm worried about a basketball game," whatever the hell it is. No, I was worried about, and it's really, and then I felt so much shame when I saw his reaction. He did not have that reaction in hopes of me feeling shame. He was having a normal reaction because who the fuck knows what to say to that when they just want to help their child who is obviously struggling. Oh, they're struggling with the fact that they think they're going to die in the electric chair.
Right.
You know,
He was like, oh shit, I wasn't prepared for this. They
yeah.
did not put this in the parent handbook.
No, they didn't. Dr. Spock did not talk about that.
It's crazy, and I've mentioned on other episodes before, just having that conversation with your kids and being able to make this more easy to talk about, opening the door for these conversations. And I'm sure that you can relate to that if your parents or whomever had those conversations at an earlier age where you could do that and you felt comfortable and you had the resources, like things might have played out a little different.
Yeah, and I think I was a little bit ahead of them in the sense that I was feeling these things and thinking these things and having the negative effects of it. But I wasn't that far ahead of them because it didn't make sense to me either. Because it was so strange and so isolating. But you're like, you're my parent. Oh, you protect me, you give me home, food, board, all that shit. All that shit. And
Minor shit.
minor shit. But they wanted to help, but I couldn't, as we were just saying a moment ago, I just couldn't really get to in my show. I had another bit where I briefly talked to the associate pastor of my church where I grew up, and I had this period where I thought I was going to get cooked in an oven, and I obsessed over it. And I would try to, and she was very gentle and was like, "Well, Kevin, nobody's going to cook you in the oven." I said, "I know that nobody is, but I'm certain of it." It's that dichotomy. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, nobody's going to cook me in the oven, but I know it's going to happen. I mean, what do you do with that?
Right. Yeah, no, that definitely makes it a little tough because especially at a young age, you didn't understand it, and then it sounded like people that you spoke to didn't really understand it. So you're like, fuck. Like you're almost
Right.
damned if you do, damned if you don't at that point.
It in again, they were all trying to help, But unfortunately, the pernicious thing about this is any it's a very delicate time when you're having a panic attack or really obsessing over something, that really what you really want is love and validation. And when somebody's trying to love you, but they don't have the ability or the words at that time to validate you, it's going to exacerbate it. But obviously, that's not what they want. And that's never what my parents or my support system has ever wanted. They just don't know what to do.
Yeah. No, and that's tough. And I think that at least now, as a parent myself, I think I have a little bit more tools than my parents did to be able to deal with these things. God forbid if my son had concerns of with his mental health or whatever that looked like. Yeah, we just it's the tools and how far the world has come and how far it's going to continue to go. I mean, there's still so much more improvement for the mental health community to grow and really be pushing the envelope to normalize these conversations. But yeah, I mean, we just have so many more tools than we did.
It's true. Very true.
Yeah, I didn't know again, like, never really spoke with somebody that had OCD. So you're kind of like a Pokemon for me. I caught one, you know?
Yes.
Right? Like, this is cool being able to see the kind of correlation finally of like, holy shit, like, I can relate to exactly what you've talked about with just being on the same thing on your mind for like a week at a time or something. It's terrifying. And it did make me feel like I was the only person that was going through it. And I remember at one point I told my partner, like, I cannot stop thinking about having a panic attack. And
Right.
she's like, but if it happens, it happens. Like, and you thinking about it is giving it power. And you're gonna like think yourself into a panic attack because I've been able to do that before as well. I'm a panic disorder superhero.
Oh man. What would it be PD on the cape? Panic
Yeah,
disorder. Yeah.
PD.
And you hear I'll be watching something or talking to somebody or whatever the fuck, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so OCD about that." And my joke about that is, I'm not OCD about folders. I'm OCD about life. Oh, I like to
Right,
put my folders in it. No, well, I'm OCD about all of it.
right.
Uh,
It's uh, it's crazy for sure how much like without you sharing this story, just perfect example. I would have never have known that like somebody that's going through what you've gone through can relate to somebody like me that does not have OCD, but our brains function the same way sometimes.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the differences maybe is I have compulsions that I do, many compulsions with the touching things, and counting, and all that stuff, that I do without even thinking about it anymore because it helps, quote, alleviate that stress or whatever.
Do you think that's gotten better over time for you, or you just haven't really noticed it as much?
I've gotten better at hiding it. Uh, I put a joke in the program of my show that was like something about how I think it's beginning to get obvious that I have to touch door handles with my left hand first or something like that. Um, has it gotten better? No, not really. It,
Oh, fuck,
I,
Kevin, that wasn't the answer I was looking for.
well, I mean, the thinking has gotten better, and my ability to not give the thoughts the power that they used to has gotten better. The compulsions are pretty much the same. They're not. I'm very lucky. I don't have debilitating compulsions. I don't, have to wash my hands multiple times a day or anything
Sure.
like that. In a lot of ways, I'm very lucky. But so the ones that I have, they're not too debilitating overall.
So, I guess my question, how would you say that you stay on your path then? Like battling what you've battled since a kid and overcoming what you've overcame and being on medication and aware of your behaviors and your thoughts and how you operate. What do you do to stay on your path then?
Um, I try to be kind. And for a long time, I thought that meant just trying to be kind to other people. But I also am trying very hard to be kind to myself. I fail at both every day, but I got to keep trying. And humor. I love to make fun of the weird shit that I've gone through because it does rob it of its power. But there's nothing better than humor, and I like to say that kindness is the only thing that makes sense 100% of the time, and humor's not far behind. I mean, it's like 99% of the time. And I have a very dark sense of humor, but that's how I deal with it. And also meeting people like you, coming on your show, and having you on my show, and all the amazing guests that I've had, that helps me because it teaches me something. And then, of course, reading. If I couldn't read, I call books my little saviors. It's really over dramatic and all this shit, but I would
No
have been
shit,
gone.
you're a big reader?
Huge reader.
So what's your favorite book? Do you have one? Is that fair to say?
Um,
Or could you give me like a
best
top
book
two?
I'll say the best book I've ever read is called The Power Broker by Robert Caro, and it's over 1,000 pages, and it's about an urban planner. Stay with me. It's fucking brilliant. But other books I really love: Infinite Jest, East of Eden, Lonesome Dove, Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. I'll read. I can't. Unfortunately, I would like to be into sci-fi and fantasy, but I get pulled out too easily. So I don't generally read that, but I read a lot of fiction and nonfiction outside of that.
I'm a big Stephen King fan.
Dude, I just finished my 40th.
Oof. There we go. I knew I
Uh,
liked you, Kevin.
what's your favorite?
Honestly, I'm pretty much like always still set on The Green Mile. It's a good one. And it's a classic.
It is so good.
It's just something about his way with words, and he's just I could go on. He's phenomenal. It's just
He writes the best characters. Have you read The Stand?
I did.
I fucking love that book so much. Have you read The Dark Tower?
I did not.
Okay, well, you still got time.
Right? We're gonna
Yeah.
add it to the list. I have so many. Like every time I see his books come out, I just I collect them. So I'm going to
Oh,
read them, but I'm collecting them.
right on. Yeah, I love that. And my nephew just got into him, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, definitely. Did you ever read the Mr. Mercedes trilogy?
Sure did. I loved it.
Yep. Yep.
Loved
Again, I knew there was something good about you, Kevin. I don't care what anybody else says. We just found it. It only took us 43 minutes, but we found it.
did it. I would have thought that it was the tornado siren thing, but sure, Stephen King
Right?
works too.
That still makes me laugh. Like I said, I had to ask you how the hell you came up with that, but
Hell, man.
I think that needs to be artwork on a t-shirt or something for sad times, where you put a little kid's head sticking out of a siren.
Dude, I'm going to try to get those files from my buddy, and
Seriously.
I'll put it on Instagram, because the way he drew it too is, I'm a huge giant Cubs fan, and in these drawings is this little kid in a Cubs uniform, because I had a home and away Cubs uniform when I was a kid, that I would wear a lot. I was a weird kid, and so I just think it's hilarious that it's this little kid strapped into an electric chair with a Cubs uniform on.
Totally cool. Nothing to see here.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, you need to get those files, get them on a shirt, and I will for sure wear that. I'm like, this is my friend Kevin. Just mind your business. He's right here. It's his little head in a tornado siren.
And then, until one day you're like, oh wait, you meet somebody and they're like, I was afraid of that too.
Right? I'm like, oh fuck.
All right,
Kevin was right. Here's his number. Give him a call. It's a crazy world out there, and it's crazy the people that you meet when you put your guard down and really just tune into mental health and what that looks like. And you do an incredible job of that on your podcast as well. And we share a lot of the same values with wanting to give people a safe platform to share their story, to really resonate with one another, and just shoot the shit and laugh about it. And life's too short to be so hung up on all the negatives, and really just seeing the positives and how we all are going through it and how we get through it.
I couldn't agree more.
Just wrapping this up here, where can my listeners follow you if they're interested more in sad times?
Sure. So on Instagram, I'm at Sad Times Podcast, all one word. On Facebook, I have a Sad Times group that if you just search Sad Times on Facebook, it'll come up. It's the link is a bunch of numbers because I'm pretty good at that too. But my logo, if you ever see it, it's a black background, it's a white face, and like the smile is the word happy with a line through it. So you can search and you'll find that on Facebook, and then I think I'm on Threads, right? Yeah, I'm on Threads because of the Instagram. So at Sad Times Podcast, and then if you go to www.sadtimespodcast.com, all the episodes are there. We have a blog, we have guest blog contributors. I'd love for you to do that, Jess, if you're interested. And you can register to be a guest. I will say anybody who comes on Sad Times, we have a discussion before so we can understand what you are comfortable or not comfortable talking about. So sadtimespodcast.com or wherever podcasts magically appear on your devices, please check it out.
I gotta ask before I let you go, did you come up with the logo?
I didn't. A very talented guy by the name of Dan did when I was originally, because Sad Times originally was a Twitch show, and he just made that logo, and I love it.
Just stuck. Yeah.
I just think it's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna give you some credit there, but just kidding.
Yeah. I just came up with a really lucrative name.
Right?
Oh man, I really need an escape. What am I going to listen to? Ooh, Sad Times sounds good.
Right?
Yeah.
Sit down, get your ice cream cone, and listen.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Kevin, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us, share your story, and really just shed light to something that needed to be discussed and just sharing your story that needed to be shared. So I really do appreciate it.
Of course. And again, an honor to be here. And thank you so much, Jess, for having me on and for the work that you're doing. I really appreciate it.
And how we always like to end these, don't push that panic button. We're going to figure it out. Thanks, guys.